Welcome to the channel. This is Reliable Rudy. Give me a couple seconds, make sure volume's good, everything's good. Okay, before we get into any market analysis and recap for the 31st, you guys know I'm not a licensed financial advisor, simply just sharing my opinion here. I believe the stock market in the short term is just a voting machine. In the long run, I look at it as a weighing machine. I believe I have a vote, person next to me has a vote, person next to him has a vote. And some people have bigger votes than others. That's just the way that I see it. Uh, so going into today, I'm going to pull my account over and we're going to go over the first sticky note posted for today. And started with airlines. I looked at it as in we've talked about these couple names as in DAL and AAL a couple times in the past couple weeks. Uh, And I would say that both names still have strength. Both names I do hold positions in. And I was looking for a couple small trims in each one, just respecting a couple gaps on the chart. I was not able to get any fills on either of the names. So let's just go over to AAL to start off. So here's your gap up. Uh, you gap up to 1510, the gap that I'm referring to. Is right here, which also meets in kind of with this previous low over here. So call this sort of a window that I'm looking for just some sort of trim. Now I did hold this against weakness on me. I looked at it as in, I actually was on the bid 1350, part of a sticky note that I had posted earlier, but here is your strength where you go from positive. I look at strength as a house. Not guaranteed. House doesn't win every single time, but I felt there was some correlating charting between the two airlines and other airlines especially. But just didn't get the follow through I was looking through with both of these names, so we'll go pull up Delta Airlines before we move along. So yeah, you got the same gap up on Delta, flirted with the highs. Here's your previous lows where the difference between AAL and DAL is, it was able to show a little bit more strength up to those lows, but still wasn't able to get to the gap that I was referring to, where that gap was at 37.25, small trims. Both names, strength, you're still holding strength of 102, so I see no reason to trim uh, where I don't want to trim the name. I think I get a higher price. Will I get the higher price? No, it's not guaranteed that I'm going to get a higher price. But I look at it as a bigger picture. We have an ascending channel, and I just kind of respected the strength. This one gave a few fake outs, but my out was the bottom break of this channel, and we haven't got that yet. So still holding both positions here. We will go over to American Airlines briefly. Kind of the same scenario. Uh, does it have more of a clean channel as Delta Airlines does? No, but I would say that you still have a nice uptrend build right here. Do we have to retrace back down into the 13s before we get a higher move? Maybe we have to, but I'm staying true to both of these, and yeah, we'll go from there. So moving forward, Mother's birthday. So happy birthday, Mom. I know you tune into these from time to time, so happy birthday. I already called you earlier this morning, so but moving along, oil mid 60s. Here we are. It was getting very close to those mid 60s. I've talked about oil many, many times. XLE, be on watch, and I still have an alert. We'll go over oil chart and we'll go over XLE. And I'm just being patient for the market to present entry with oil. Uh, is it around support down here in these upper to mid 60s? Yeah, probably is, but I still want to stay true to a process that works for me. So going and looking at oil, not the greatest day, still down 2%. Uh, Earlier in the day, it was leaving more of a wick, and sort of why I would say you probably have some sort of support is, this could be the third point of contact. Is there a perfect way to set this uptrend? It's kind of a flat uptrend right here. So, if it breaks below this, who knows what the downside holds. And I'm sure there's other different ways that you can draw different uptrends, but I look at it as there's support around here. If the market wants to show me an entry down here, that's why I want to be able to take advantage of it. So going over to a 15-minute chart, here's your beginning of the day. Here's around your market open. It caught a bit off early, so this is what I was saying where it was leaving that wick, but it didn't really have enough follow through to really break through these previous lows. Uh, and XLE and oil, I wouldn't say necessarily move in tandem with one another. They have showed variations of different uh, price action. But looking at this, I would just say there wasn't really an opportunity to, early in the day, maybe you could have said, okay, we're going to get this bull flag continuation and kind of stair step to the upside, but there just wasn't any follow through along with that. So now we'll go over to XLE. Now, originally, I did have this. This is an alert, so if the price action can show me that it can break through this, maybe there is something worth. And obviously, I never got alerted towards anything on XLE. Originally, I did have it over top of this wick as it was holding right around here. It was holding a price, holding a price. If it could have showed me strength over top of that 77, okay, maybe there is something here, and maybe I didn't have it exactly right there. Maybe I even had it above this wick. But more so why I liked it right there is because you have these previous lows. Can it show me strength to get over top of these lows? Couple wicks, but just no follow through. So what I am looking for, now I'm going to move this back to kind of this little area right here, and simply why I like that area for a crossover is because here's a nice double bottom low that it has. If it can show me that it can get over 77, maybe there is something there. So that's kind of what I'm looking at with XLE. And I've been pretty transparent with this. My entries, I have entered into this uh, at higher prices. If you guys follow the channel, you guys know I have entered into oil plays, and I kind of like this support down here, but I'm all for the drop down to the $72 gap where I'm going to be a little bit more bullish and maybe a little bit more aggressive going against strength. As you can see, strength negative 178. Is this a bottom for the short term? Probably not. I generally don't like betting against the strength as I look at it as house. House majority of the time, in my opinion, I believe the house wins majority of the time. But they don't win every time. But one of the main reasons why I like oil is because of the shareholder return, buying back shares, increasing dividends. They have solid margins. That's the catalyst that I'm using behind why I like, XLE, just a broad oil fund. Uh, and you're getting a solid dividend. That dividend's also been growing. Maybe the growth is mainly because of a solid 2022, and maybe they don't have that sustained growth, but with a payout ratio around 28%, I just don't see any risk towards the dividend, specifically not with the data that I have right now. So if XLE wants to drop down to the $72 gap, I'm all for it. If it doesn't want to, that's why I want to be ready in case it presents an entry for me. So that is the talk for oil. And then the last sticky note for the day, I didn't really have anything crazy for you guys today. Is FXI. It's an ETF on watch. Weak. Strength is weak. I look at it as value, kind of like oil. It had a 25.55 gap, downside gaps 24.36, 22.96, and 22.16. I'm sure there is more gaps to the downside. Those are just the three next gaps that I will have on watch. And I did buy some FXI today. It's the iShares China Large Cap ETF. And all I did was simply respect the gap. I just had an order off of it. Now I'm not perfect. I've not played this position perfectly, as I was talking about this over here when we were getting some positive strength. We had some gaps up. I respected this uptrend. I respected this gap as well. I even respected around this 28 level as I was holding it. So by no means am I the perfect investor that makes perfect positions. I simply just like this fund in particular. Uh, but I tried to size accordingly. Uh, so I respected the levels. You didn't really hear me talking or posting sticky notes about this. As soon as we kind of broke this uptrend, this kind of trying to hold support right here. Could you have bought this gap? Well, as you can see, we have a gap down completely through that, which is also below these lows over here. Red engulfing straight through it, kind of rejecting some levels. Is this sort of a wick up to that previous low? Okay, now where do we need to fall to? In my opinion, this was a start where you had a gap right here, you had a previous high right here, but this was a nice gap right through here, and all I did was simply respect the level. Does that mean that this is low? No, probably not. You had a strength of negative 186. I would be surprised if it's a low. All I did was simply make an add to my position and respected the level as it presented to me. Now, even if I didn't just put the order off of the gap, I would say if I was looking at this, okay, we fill the gap, we reclaim the gap, we wick up to this. Let's throw an alert over top of this. And why do I say this wick right here? Is because this wick meets in with the previous low. You see, if I just mark this previous low, and you see how we wick into that? We have a consolidation candle that kind of trades back down, and then we put this nice green engulfing candle right through that previous low. Had I just put an alert, I would have got alerted, and I would have went and just made a market order. And, you know, for the short term, yeah, it was a nice, you could look at this as a nice trade, but now I can see we're kind of putting wicks into identify the next low. And we have not gotten over this price, so for all I know, we get a rejection. Or even if it trades higher, you have a gap fill, who knows? Maybe we reject 26 flat and we trade back down and we give up these levels. So it's all kind of just playing accordingly to the chart that I see out in front. And even if I didn't buy the gap, I probably would have ended up buying at a little bit of higher price, and I would have been okay with that because I have a catalyst. I'm looking at this from a long-term perspective. I didn't really go over the NASDAQ today, so maybe we can go over the NASDAQ briefly. Yeah, that was all the sticky notes for today. And yeah, so let's jump over to the NASDAQ because that's where all the buzz is at. That's where everyone wants to be is the NASDAQ, the big tech. Uh, if you've watched any of my live streams, you guys know my opinion on the NASDAQ. I think it's worthy of trims up here, but you do have strength. So that's the difference. I talked about a couple names that are weaker names in terms of strength, and now we're talking about the NASDAQ, which is stronger names. And I stated yesterday that I would be surprised, I would be absolutely shocked if this was the top, simply going off of strength. I know this doesn't have volume, but this is a nice bull flag pattern right here. You gap up over top of the highs, you wick down, doesn't have the weakness to get there. You put in a nice green engulfing candle, and now I think we're just rinsing and repeating. We're putting in sort of another bull flag look. Uh, is it the top? I can't guarantee you guys anything. But just looking at this, keep the rundown short in case you guys are new or anything. I am not a fan of the 702 retracement. I'm not a fan of gaps. Same way I buy a gap to the downside is the same reason why I'd sell a gap to the upside. And April 5th, 2022, we gap down right here, meets in correlating evidence, not evidence, correlating levels is a better way to put that. Meeting in at this 702, how is it going to act right here? I don't know. I don't know. Does that mean freaking YOLO a short off of this? No. No. For all I know, this is why I always state that short-term trading is just a voting machine. I mean, if you guys really wanted to, you can go back to my videos when I'm back in last August when I'm talking about wave patterns and five wave structures and setting higher lows and retracements. This is simply, I look at it as a retracement where, this five wave structure could just be a wave one. The retracement could be a wave 2. You try to hold some sort of uptrend right through here. Now let's just go draw that in just for sake of the matter. Because it should be drawn in there. I just continue to clear my chart so it's not in there. You have a nice uptrend that is being held. Now you get a five-way pattern right to that uptrend. So now let's go back to this day chart where we can kind of break this down a little bit better where maybe you get some sort of sell off. You have some levels meeting in with this longer term uptrend. where do you catch some sort of a bounce? You know, you could, but what happens when this uptrend gives up? Are you trusting these lows to be able to hold? You know, it's pretty decent support. You put some sort of triple bottom, maybe even more taps. You got one, two, three, four, five. It's pretty decent support. How many people do you think, if this played out this way, would be like, oh, I'm just buying the support on the Nasdaq. Last time I was here, we got a rocket ship to the high side, and you know, all these big techs, I'm in, I'm in, I'm in. I just don't think that it would play out that way if this scenario went like this. I think you would see this support give up, where we take out this line, and let's just hypothetically say that this is a wave 3 pattern. Uh, Now support would turn into resistance potentially, where you get a wave 4 rejecting the bottom of wave 1 and ultimately a final wave down. Now this could play out over the course of a long period of time. We could be over here in 2025 and finally seeing it play out where, you know, you actually have some levels that you can buy off over here. You have a top, 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 top. COVID even goes and tests into this area a little bit, and I'm sure on the upside you have some sort of support hold when you reclaim that resistance. I just think that it is a possibility, and I'm not counting it out until, you know, if the Nasdaq just stayed extremely bullish and we shot through all-time highs, you know, I would have to go back to the roots and say, uh, what is your ultimate retracement? Uh, Top of the move, bottom of the move. Is it possible that we are going to get some sort of a all-time high test before we get a move all the ways to the upside? So let's take out this move. Let's go back to the daily. Would it be out of the question to maybe blast through all-time highs? You have an exhaustive sellout and you set in some sort of shoulder right here where this could be some sort of head and shoulders top. We know we have our long-term uptrend rolling in right through here somewhere where, you know, this gives you a head and shoulders top before we get an even greater move to the downside through that uptrend. You know, I'm not counting it out, but those are a couple different scenarios I could see play out. You know, does that mean that we reject that all-time retracement? You know, not necessarily. You know, for all I know, we keep going even higher. Nasdaq all the ways up to 30K. Why not? Let's do it. I'm all for it. But no, that is my opinion on the Nasdaq, and yeah, that's kind of all I really had for you guys today. A couple notable um, names. I would say our chart on Intel. Uh, I wish I just respected the sticky note that I posted and just bought the gap. But no, we bought this name off of this gap and didn't get a 29 fill, which is bottom wick, which is unfortunate. But yeah, nice follow through, nice channel break. Is this qualify for some sort of a pull for a bull flag pattern where, you know, you have the increasing volume? Are we going to trade down and maybe retest these highs at a 30.50? You know, I wouldn't be opposed to being a buyer at these levels. Uh, but yeah, that was notable. A couple other notable names. I would say Kazim didn't execute it, but a nice 3 flat level hold. Man, I wish I just respected 3 flat. I mean, bounce, 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 bounce. What is that? 10 bounces off of 3 flat. Pretty impressive that it's able to continue that. But no, other than that, that was pretty much all I had for you guys today. Going to be kind of a boring live stream. Let's see if we got anything over here in the chat. Doesn't look like we have anything in the chat. Yeah, I don't really have anything else that I had in particular that I wanted to go over, but yeah, we can go over that. We talked about this in live stream yesterday. Was this Icon Enterprises? Um, I'm just looking for some sort of gap Gap fill, have some levels. We're taking out highs. We have an uptrend respected right here. And yeah, I would say that you have strength on your day on your 15-minute chart. On your daily chart, I wouldn't say you have any key levels that strength of negative 114. You're coming into a 23 flat level. Kind of an overhang before this gap. How does it act from there? You know, it's tough to say. But CTSH, this was a trade that we talked about from the earnings date. Had some good ads down here, and it's kind of just been a slow grinder. Strength getting closer to that negative. Is it closer to kind of giving up this strength that it has and maybe a retrace down to the gap fill down at 58.90? You know, it's possible. I think you do have some sort of uptrend right here. Do we get all the ways down there? Do we need to retrace 60 flat? You know, decent support possibly. This was another one. We had a sticky note on this a couple weeks back. This is when we had some strength over here up in the 80s, and I simply said, no, we're going to cut this. We're going to re-identify it. I like it in the mid 70s. We can go look at why it was presented as a trade, as it showed me early that it wanted to wake up here. I seen the gap fill buyers and I tried it. So kind of a slow mover, nothing to really brag about here. But from the gap, 0.8%, like I said, nothing really that crazy. What else have we got? No, that was pretty much it for the live stream. If there's anyone tuned in, that I'll give you guys a couple seconds to post any tickers that you want me to go over, and I can go from there. The Workiva trade, you know, kind of just playing the course. I'm interested in this name, which you have the 50 period running through here in the mid 94s. Do we need to retrace down the 93 half? You know, it's possible. But holding good strength. Light volume still, but we still have not really gotten that true breakout. I would say over 97.50. I would be very interested to see how this name works. And you have some clear outs, you have some retracements that you need to work through. There's your 97.50, there's your 618, there's your 702. I'd respect it, call it a 99 flat. You know, respect the start of the gap fill, maybe 100 flat. And yeah, respect your outs and maybe hold a piece for the dream, where I'd say your dream move on this for a nice out would be 116. But this actually brings me to a really good point of how I would look at a retracement. You know, if you have a nice drop right here, look at where my 116 meets up at, my half. Where are we rejecting? We're rejecting 382. Where's my 702? You know, I'd say your dream move is probably the 702 if you're lucky enough to get a move up to here. But I would say this looks almost pretty similar to a stock that I traded, that I kind of put on notice. Large drop, runs up, you get a direct correlation with the 382, you get direct correlation with the half, you get the direct correlation with the 618, and now we've given up this ascending channel, and boom. Has anything fundamentally changed with this business that would justify a drop from, you know, upper 50s when we break this uptrend down to 35? Now, let me add one other big kicker into this. You have a left leg, you put a double bottom in, you get your extended right leg, breaks over top these highs. Simply just mark your neckline. Are we going to see this neckline? If I was sitting here and the price was over 70, we get over 70 here, and I told you, hey, backtest the neckline, $30 flat, mark it on your chart, you would have been like, dude, you're freaking crazy. You are freaking crazy. You need to get off whatever you're smoking. And here we are. Now is 30 out of the question when we're sitting at 36? No, it's not. It's just simply going through a process that works for me. You know, that doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. Everyone's got to find an investing strategy that works for them. And just because it works for someone else doesn't mean it's going to work for someone. But that's what I would say about that. So there will be some sticky notes on Hibbett as we are approaching this 30 flat level. And yeah, I look at Hibbett as a pretty fundamentally sound business. Is the area that the company uh, that the company is in the retail space, is it the most popular? No, probably not. It's a pretty boring company, but I see them as a fundamentally sound financially, as in they bring in free cash flow, they're buying back shares, they're paying a dividend, and they're increasing that dividend. Those are what I'm looking for in a company to punch long in. And yeah, we'll see how this goes if this wants to get down to 30. But those were pretty much the points I wanted to get crossed. Um, if anybody wants to post any tickers into the chat, I'm more than welcome to go over any tickers that you guys have any thoughts, or I'll give you guys 30 seconds or so to go over that. Another one that we had on watch was Enphase today. We've talked about Enphase. We've had a couple sticky notes on it. We put it on watch when it started respecting the long-term channel that we were trading in right here. You have one, call that a second, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points of contact on the bottom end of this longer-term channel. Started back at the end of 2020. Respects it with a nice parallel channel on the top end up at 335. So when you're talking about a wide channel from under $100 up to 300 bucks, I believe it's worth keeping notice on it. And we also have a shorter term uptrend or channel with some key levels to the upside. You have your previous lows, and you have a gap fill if you're lucky enough to get a move up to 120. Potentially, do we have to trade back down in the mid 150s? Possibly. Uh, but you also have strength. You gap down from the earnings, you have negative 20, 200 strength, and now it's kind of slowly turned its way back to a positive break, where we're sitting at 190. You're taking out, call this some sort of neckline, as you have a confirmed higher low now that we're taking out these highs, and you're actually wicking into this neckline. So that's what puts it on watch. We talked about 167 tops in the live stream yesterday, where you gap up, you hold 167, doesn't even get down to that, and now you're kind of holding the next level. So this looked at as resistance, goes through resistance, now holds as support. I'd say it's worth keeping on watch with that type of setup. Can it show strength to break over top of this channel? Possibly. It could be a potential gap up type of play where you're looking for this kind of bull flag continuation. You get the gap up, you get a nice green engulfing candle up to these lows. Does it have any follow through after that? It's tough to say as of right now. Uh, One other name that we talked about yesterday was Vail. We talked about 1250 as support. Talked about having a couple resting orders in front of 1250 yesterday. What is the wick low for today? 1251. You can't draw it up any better than that. This is just identifying levels. This is identifying where you have support, or you have an uptrend. Uh, More people want to buy than sell on a given day. That's your short-term trading for you. Price is going to go up. That's just a simple way of putting short-term trading. Whether you like it or not, you are not going to be able to control stock price with a single vote. You need more. But other than that, we can go look at the 15-minute chart, and you just look at how this holds. You trade down, you wick to your 1250. Now, had you just said, hey, here's your previous low wick, let's put an alert off 1255, you get alerted, okay, maybe you don't have the alert there and you're respecting the 1260 low, simply just mark it. Boom, as soon as you take that level, it starts holding as support. You even get a consolidation candle on this green move with increasing volume. That is the big tell. Volume is always a big indicator when going off short-term pricing. And this increasing volume all the ways through, even leading into the back half of the day, does it have the strength to go up and fill 1276 gap? It's possible. I mean, we're right there. We're 6 pennies off. But do we need to trade back down to 1250 again? It's possible. It's a level worth keeping an eye on, in my opinion. And that is why I was on sticky note a couple times over the last couple weeks. Other than that, it doesn't look like you guys have any tickers that you want me to look at, so I don't have anything else to go over. I'll give you guys a couple more seconds to post anything in the chat that you want, and we'll go from there. Alright, that's going to call it for the live stream. I appreciate any of you who tuned in, and I will see you tomorrow around the same